different types of scripts, right? There is local, server, and module scripts, right? But the two that I'm going to really focus on is local and server scripts. You don't really have to worry about module scripts, even though I do plan to talk about them to show you guys how to use them. Really and truly, do not worry about them because it's like that's for intermediate and advanced level scripters. No beginner should really be using module scripts. Beginners should only be using local and server scripts, but people wanted me to talk about it, so I was like, okay, I'll include it in the beginner guide. So first thing I'll go over is the local script. A local script is a script that runs its content on the client, which is the player's device, instead of the server. It is used to access client-only objects such as the player's camera. Now, I feel like that definition was pretty good compared to the other ones and stuff, but just in case you were still confused, a local script pretty much means it runs stuff that like only affects the client, which the client refers to a single player. Let me show you guys the difference, right? I'm gonna click play and I'm gonna load into the game and I'm gonna show you guys the difference. Do you guys notice how right here it says current client, right? So when you're playing the game, when you're playing like any type of game, right, and you're moving around like this you are the client. Like what you're seeing and stuff, it's either client or server based, right? But certain things are client only, certain things are the entire server can see, right? Let me switch to the server view. I click this icon, you guys see this is the server, this is the server view, right? So there are two different things. Now let me show you guys the difference. Okay, so let's say this. If I press escape, the escape key, right? I bring up the Roblox default menu, right? With all the, the settings, take a screenshot, report players, whatever, the server list, all that stuff, right? Now, if I press this, the UI is going to show up on my screen, but it's not going to show up on every other player's screen. It's only going to show up on my screen. This is client side. This is local. This is something that will be done on a local script because only I, the client, an individual player, can see it, right? Now, there are events that can affect all clients, which would mean it would affect all players, but just think of it more so as like certain things affect individual players, certain things affect all the players in the server, right? And this is one of the things that is a client only thing, as only I can see this. Like if there was another player in the game, you wouldn't know that I have this menu open. Like I'd have to tell you, you wouldn't know, right? Now, other things that are client based is, I mean, there's a lot of things. If I walk around the game, obviously other players can, see me walking around. That is, server based, right? If I type something in the chat and I say, wow, everybody that has access to the chat will see my message. But obviously, if I type something but I don't send it, this is client. It's client only until I press enter, right? Until I send the message. When I send the message, it then is, dispersed between all the players in the server, and then it become, server-sided, right? So that's pretty much explaining the difference between client and server side. Now we'll get into the actual scripting, right? So certain things can be accessed via local scripts. And let me talk about these services over here to explain where you can put scripts. So one thing I just want to go ahead and just say right off the bat, please do not put scripts inside of parts, like anything inside of the workspace. Please do not put like scripts inside of there, right? Like just don't do that. I'm going to tell you guys where you can put scripts. Okay, so what I would personally recommend, the three places that I'm pretty sure you can only really put local scripts, and I would only see logically why you would want to put a local script there, or sorry, four actually. The two most common for me is starter player scripts and starter character scripts, which is under starter player. So just click this little arrow if you don't see it, right? You could insert local scripts. If you click the plus icon, you'll see the option for a local and a server script and stuff. Now I just want to clarify something. When I say server script, I'm referring to this. You see how it just says script? It doesn't literally say server script, but yeah, when I say server script, I'm referring to a script. That's just how we differentiate between local script and server script, right? But yes, so you can, click the plus icon, insert a local script. I'd recommend either having it inside a starter character script, starter player scripts, if it's going to be in starter GUI, you would need to have a UI in here, right? Which don't even really worry about that. I'm just saying, like, if you have a UI, like a frame, or like a, I don't know, like an admin panel or something, you would probably have a script inside, right? And then the other place is inside of replicated first. This is for like things like loading screens and stuff, right? Since things inside of replicated first, replicate first. It's the first things to load on the client side, right? So yeah, explaining the differences. So starter player name, it's a given. Starter player, these are the things that start when the player joins. So starter player, this script will be parented to the player, right? So say if there are values on the script that you don't want to change, you would leave it inside a starter player. If there are values you don't care about changing, you would leave inside of the starter character. So what that essentially means is certain things like, I don't know, like a combat status system. Like if you want to know if a player is blocking, if they're attacking and stuff, you would probably put it inside a starter character because, combat has to do with the character. We're opposed to like if you're trying to see like, okay, if a player is walking, let's give them a speed boost every 5 seconds, right? Even though that does involve the character, you more than likely probably want to do that for the player, the starter player scripts, right? But like I said, you don't really have to worry about that right now. So then moving on, we have the server scripts. A server script is a script that can access server-side objects, properties, and events, such as to award badges to players using badge service, while local scripts on the client cannot. So the difference between local script and server scripts, you guys should pretty much understand that server scripts affect things on the server, right? Now I'm going to explain to you guys, and I'm actually going to show y'all too, like the difference between local server script, like what they can access. So as you guys can see, if I'm on the client side, right, you guys see how I can, even though I can see server storage, right, I can see server storage, I can see server script servers, right, I can see it, but I can't see the contents inside of it. If I switch to the server side, you guys see how there's now an arrow and there's actually a script in here now. This is a Roblox default script, by the way. But yeah, you guys see how I can see it on the server side, but if I switch, I can't see it on the client side. That's because the client side, the individual player only has access to certain things. The workspace, players, actually, yeah, pretty much everything. I believe pretty much everything except the except server storage and server script service. These are the most secure things inside of the Explorer tab. Hence why you would want to keep the important stuff, important scripts in the server script service, and the important, items, instances and stuff inside of server storage. Because if I were to insert, say, a folder in server storage, right, I can't access it. That's why if you're ever watching a video that talks about the best ways to deal with exploiters or prevent exploiters from taking advantage of your game, you would want to handle stuff on the server side and keep all your important like weapons and abilities and stuff, I guess assets per se, inside of server storage, because hackers and exploiters cannot access that, to my knowledge I should say. But yeah, they can't access that. That's just the most secure place to put them, right? So that's the difference between server scripts and local scripts. Local scripts can only access certain things on the client side, which you will need to do both. There will be times where you need to access things that are only available on the client side, and then there will be times where you need to access things on the server side. An example would be for, let's say, the client side, right? So the example which I mentioned actually about the player's camera. So you cannot access a player's camera on a server script. The reason for this is that server scripts run on the server, right? So the server doesn't have a camera. Like, if you guys understand what I'm saying, each individual player has a camera, but you have to access that by going on the client side. You can access the camera, so you can see where the camera's position is, how far it's turned to the left, how far it's turned to the right, etc., right? There are certain things. Other things, would be like UI related stuff, like disabling players UI. That could also be done. That also has to be done locally. Disabling players UI, like if you wanted to disable the default Roblox menu, or I don't know. Actually, sorry, you can't disable that. If you wanted to disable like reset character, the reset character button, you could do that, right? Now for server scripts, it's pretty simple, right? For things like this, you would probably want to access things inside of server storage. Say if you have a combat script, right, and a player is about to use like a flame attack, like a fire-based attack, right? You're gonna have your assets in here, like the fireball VFX effects and stuff. You're gonna want to access it inside of server storage. You would only be able to do that via a server script. So that's the difference between the two of them and why you'd want to access them, right? Now for module scripts, I've read over the definition in the textbook, or I keep saying the textbook, but like I'm speaking like the virtual, which I will explain to y'all later in the video. But yeah, I read it and the definition is horrible in my opinion. I'm reading it and I'm just like, I don't even understand this myself, even though I know how to use module scripts, but okay. So a brief overview of module scripts. As I said, I don't want you guys to use them at all. I just am only talking about it because people ask me to. So module scripts work similar to server scripts, right? They can access things on the server side. They cannot access things on the client side, right? I just want to make that clear. They cannot access things on the client side. So think of module scripts as similar to server scripts, right? So if I insert a module script, here's what it looks like. It's purple and it literally says module script, right? Now, these are much more confusing to use and stuff, right? I probably will come back to this and stuff, but I do have a video that talks about module scripts. If you're interested to know about module scripts, I have a video talks about. I really don't want to get into like the usage of it because it's like this isn't really important for a beginner. This is more so for an intermediate. But I do have a video if you are interested to know how module scripts work though. So okay, now we're gonna get